Hey guys, Nike here. I wanted to do a post-balance patch tier list. That's right, a post-balance patch tier list for elite specializations following the, let's not mince words, following the catastrophic balance patch hitting on June 28th. I'm not going to share my thoughts on the patch. If you follow me on Twitter, if you've watched me on Tea Time with Teapot, you know my thoughts on the patch. If you've seen some of my Reddit comments, you know my thoughts. It's not good. No need to dwell on that. So let's just talk about where it looks like things add up. I'm going to leave out core classes because, frankly, they're just embarrassing, and there's no need to even consider them. All right, first up is Catalyst. Catalyst was previously and probably an A tier DPS, and had a viable support build that would probably be like a B tier support build, and there were instances at very, very high levels of gameplay for like record runs where you'd stack catalysts and you were able to get 100% quickness uptime without having any quickness support characters, because each catalyst would bring like 25% quickness uptime to the squad. So you could stack catalysts, bring 2 extra DPS classes to the raid, and get some pretty nutty kill times. That's all changed now. Catalyst is clearly a piece of crap after this patch, and is right there in C tier. It is, the DPS is abysmal. I mean, I would guess that it's going to be below 33k on a regular sized hitbox, and the support build may as well not exist. All right, Tempest got a buff. It's got Alacrity. I think there is a build there, like a Condi Alacrity build. Who knows? I don't know. I'm gonna let the 5 heads figure that out. But I do think that Tempest was in a very kind of bad spot after the 10-man boon thing got removed, and this doesn't return it to where it was, but it does make it slightly better, and so we're gonna put it in B tier. Now we have Weaver. Weaver, I'm going to put in C tier next to Catalyst. I do believe Weaver will have better DPS than Catalyst, but since Weaver has no viable support builds, it's hard to say it's better than Catalyst, but it does at least have a viable DPS build that's probably slightly better than Catalyst, so it's just going to go in the same tier right there along with Catalyst. Next up we have Hollow. Hollow, this is going to be interesting for a lot of you guys, is one of the only 2. Let me make sure I'm right about this. Yeah. Hollow is one of the only 2 viable power DPS specs left in the game. After this patch, there will only be 2 power specs that you can run as pure DPS that I would consider not trolling your team. I know I said that Weaver has a viable DPS spec, but it's not. It's something that you play because you want to play Weaver, not because you want to actually help your team. If you actually want to help your team and you need to play a power spec, you're going to go with Hollow. So Hollow is going A tier for being a bro. Oh look! Next up we have Mechanist. Mechanist is one of ANET's favorite classes, and it's good at everything. It has a pretty good power DPS build, a really good Condi DPS build, and a best-in-class support build. It's a fan favorite and a dev favorite, so that's going in S tier. No questions asked about that. Now we have Scrapper. Quickness Scrapper is actually somewhat not a meme now, relatively speaking. there's two new quickness specs that we're gonna talk about in this tier list, and they're both worse than Quickness Scrapper. And most of you guys know how popular Quickness Scrapper was before the patch, or how popular it wasn't before the patch. And the new specs are below that in terms of their awesomeness. So Quickness Scrapper looking pretty mid. It was kind of down at the bottom, and now it's pretty mid. So you have to be happy about that. It's going B tier along with Tempest. B tier is shaping up to be like this tier of things that might be good. They're not great. They're not optimal, but they're playable, and you won't feel terrible playing them. Okay, next up we have Dragon Hunter. Dragon Hunter, once upon a time, was a really good, really nice DPS build. However, not much has changed. It was already on the lower side of DPS, but it suffers from the fact that all power DPS specs got brutally beaten savagely, the way the police do against someone who mildly resists. So yeah, it was already kind of like hanging around the bottom, and now it has fallen through the bottom and is going to C tier. All right, next up is Firebrand. Now, you guys might not be aware of this, but Firebrand is it's godly in that it can give full quickness to its sub squad easily with very little effort, without full boon duration investment. Just a little bit of investment will get you there. You'll still do really good DPS, and you'll still have some empty utility skill slots that you can bring whatever utility is needed to help you guys win the fight. Plus it has tomes, which have more utility packed on demand. Man, Firebrand is so good. The players love it, the devs very much love it, and undisputed, Firebrand is S tier. Biggity bam. Okay. Next up, we have Willbender. Willbender, it does have an alacrity build, which is a complete joke. We don't even need to worry about that. But it does have a very good Condi build. The Condi build is actually very high DPS, so it is indeed usable. And considering that all power builds got taken to the woodshed and Condi builds barely got touched, Condi's looking pretty good these days. So Willbender, I'm going to put that in A tier as a very strong DPS spec that you can play. Chrono. I feel bad if you're a Chrono main, because Chrono lost a lot of precision from the spotter banner of discipline erasure, and it didn't get that back in any traits that it has access to, because they gave the crit chance trait for Mesmer to Virtuoso only. So Power Chrono is dead. It is all the way dead if it wasn't dead before. And now also you no longer get any alacrity or quickness together. You can only pick one or the other. So Chrono's hurting. Frankly, Chrono is worse at quickness than Firebrand. It's worse at alacrity than Heal Mech. I guess it's probably somewhere around B tier, in that it's probably about as good as Quickness Scrapper these days at quickness, and it's probably about as good as Tempest at alacrity, which isn't saying much, so that's not great. All right, now we have Mirage, which Mirage, I have to say, it's looking good. DPS Axe Mirage, pretty solid spec. Maybe not the most popular spec with the devs, but DPS Axe Mirage is a viable spec, especially these days, with Condi looking so good. Additionally, Staff Alack Mirage, very good. Relatively easy to get 100% uptime of Alack, plus a whole bunch of other boons on your team. Really, it's a great spec that has a lot of uses. So we're going to promptly put Mirage in A tier, no problem. Virtuoso, very good spec. It has two builds, Power DPS and Condi DPS. And they basically play the exact same way, very similar play style, and they're both great. The power build got a little toned down because all power builds got, relatively speaking, toned down, and the Condi build, I mean, everyone expected the Condi build to get bopped hard, and it didn't. It's still good. It's still probably, in terms of pure DPS, I would say that Virtuoso is the best pure DPS spec in the game. So that's going S tier these days. All right, next up, Harbinger. Harbinger has kind of a meme quickness build. The quickness build, if it was all by itself, would be in B tier, but it does have a pretty good Condi DPS build, which again, because power builds, relatively speaking, are worse, and Condi builds, relatively speaking, are better, the build is overall great. It's not S tier, but because it has a little variety, it's going to go promptly in A tier with other specs that are pretty good. Reaper, interesting. They seemed to put a little bit of effort into Reaper, but it was, again, sort of like Dragon Hunter. It was already on the low end of power DPS, and the changes that they made to it basically make it able. It basically just treads water. It doesn't actually improve. It just treads water, and unfortunately, the water level went down because all power builds got nerfed across the board. So even though it's treading water, the pool is now 2 feet shallower. So it fell down, and Reaper's close to uninstall tier. It's like right on the line between uninstall tier and C tier, but we're gonna go C tier, and that seems like a good place for it. Oh, now we have Scourge. Now you might have heard that Scourge is probably overall the most overpowered spec in the game. It has basically like a high A tier DPS build. It has a low S tier support build. It's great. It's tanky. It has ranged damage, so it's really good at progression things, or any the harder the content gets, the better Scourge gets. And that is something you can't say for a lot of DPS specs, and something that you can't even say for a lot of support specs. So overall, Scourge is still S tier. That's pretty good. All right, next up we have Druid. Druid, interesting case here. Druid loses its unique spirits, but it gains alacrity. So essentially, Druid becomes a budget version of Heal Mech. The only thing Druid really does better than Heal Mech is it gives Vigor, but what Heal Mech does that Druid doesn't do is it gives stability and Aegis. And frankly, I love Vigor. I think Vigor is hugely underrated, but stability and Aegis are far better than Vigor, if those are the comparisons. So yeah, quite honestly, I have a hard time saying Druid is B tier. I think I have to put it A, but it's a low A. It's a low A. It's better than these B tier specs. That's for sure. But yeah, but it's definitely not S tier, so it feels sort of comfortable in A. Next up we have Soulbeast. Oh, you hate to see it. Soulbeast got demolished, devastated, destroyed. Not good. It got hurt in general by the power nerfs across the board, and then specifically they took one wolf pack out around the back of the shed, and one wolf pack was like, "Hey, what am I doing here behind the shed, guys?" And they're like, "Shut up." And he's like, "Okay, sir." And then he looks on the ground and he sees a dead body, and the Soulbeast is like, "Oh my god, what is this dead body?" And it's Soul Cleave Summit, the Renegade elite skill, and it's shot in the back of the head. And one wolf pack is like, "Oh my god, is that Soul Cleave Summit? Why am I here?" And then the realization of why he was there dawned on him just a little bit too late, and now his body is down in uninstall tier. And right next to him in uninstall tier is his little buddy. it's his little buddy, Untamed, still shit, and still goes in uninstall tier. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So for a while there, Herald I thought was a really underrated spec. I thought it was pretty good. It was previously B tier in that it was just a boon generator that had decent damage and good CC. So it was nice to have a Herald in your team, and it had boon extension for your crew. These were good things. But then the 10-man boon thing happened, and the boons all went to 5, and it went from B tier down to C tier. Now they tried to give it quickness, but the quickness build that they gave it is putrid. The playstyle is the most boringest, worst, most awful playstyle, and it's not good. Because you need 100% boon duration, and you need to use your skills perfectly on cooldown with 100% alacrity uptime. And if you do all that, you get exactly 102% quickness uptime. So there is zero slack in the system. There is zero room for alacrity not being perfect. There is zero room for mechanics forcing you to delay things. There's zero room for any mistakes. So the quickness spec does not save it whatsoever. And in fact, since it's a power spec, it got worse across the board. So they were hoping it was going to land back in B tier, but it is squarely in C tier at this point. Okay, next up is Renegade. Renegade, I'm not sure. Renegade got hurt, man. My boy Renegade, it was S tier when it had 10-man alacrity. The hit to 10-man alacrity, knocking down to 5, put it down there, sort of like low A tier. And it hasn't really changed too much. It's still okay. I'm going to say it's still A. It still can do alacrity, and it still pumps. The DPS on Condi Renegade, it still pumps. It's a pumper. So yeah, it's still good. Because all power builds got bopped, and the Condi builds did not get bopped. So Condi build's looking good. It's still A tier. It's obviously better than any of these specs in B tier. It's obviously better than anything in C tier. Definitely not S tier, but it's good. It has this thing. Oh, now we have Vindicator. Vindicator is a pure DPS spec, pure power DPS spec. No utility besides like meme heals that no one cares about. No boons. It is just power. Except it was never good. Even when it was good, it was bad. It was like borderline. It was like hanging tough at C tier, barely hanging on. But this patch, all power builds got punched in the face, and now Vindicator is uninstall tier. That's just the way it is. Next up, we have the Daredevil. Daredevil is a power build, therefore it sucks. It was B tier. It has very little utility. It has good CC. It also has a Condi build, I should say that. And the Condi build is pretty cool too, but the Condi build has probably less utility than the power build. So it has a viable Condi build. It has a viable power build. Neither of them are great. Neither of them are meta. I think the stolen skills may have gotten bopped. Not in this patch, but in previous patches, so it's not quite as good in every place that it was. Overall, it's better than uninstall tier, but it's probably not B tier. It's high C. It's probably close to B tier. I'm looking at the other B tier specs. It's kind of better than them, or C tier specs. I'm going B tier on it. It's better than these C tier specs. That's for sure. Like if someone was like, "Hey, do you want a power Daredevil in your raid group, or a Weaver, or a Dragon Hunter?" I would go, "Yeah, I'll have the power Daredevil, please. At least the guy can just dodge and press staff 2 and use Bazzy Venom, and he'll actually be contributing something." That's good. Oh, look, it's Deadeye. Deadeye is a cool spec. You know what's so cool about it? That it loves being an uninstall tier and it doesn't ever want to leave. It likes it here. You know, there's a term when you've been in prison too long. It's called you've become institutionalized. It means your brain has warped to this fucked up environment that you find yourself in, and your brain has adjusted to this crazy prison environment, so much so that you can no longer function outside of it. You like prison. You like your brain has adapted to prison, and you no longer function outside of it. Deadeye has been in uninstall tier for so long that it's adapted to uninstall tier. It likes it there. It even gets conjugal visits in uninstall tier. That's how bad it is. It's loving life there. It's good. So it's hanging tough. Yeah, it's there. All right, next up we have Spectre. Spectre I look at very similarly to Renegade. They in a lot of ways they overlap each other in what they want to do. They're both Condi pumpos that make boons that are valuable, and they both have some nice utility baked in, and they're both kind of fun to play, and they both also have really good DPS specs. So yeah, I would say Spectre is currently A tier. And there we go. Oh, now look, we have my boy Warrior. Yeah, this is gonna hurt you guys. I'm sure a lot of you guys are Warrior fans. We have let's start with Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker was an uninstall tier and it had nothing. It had nothing. However, now it has a quickness build. If you take Tactics and Marshal's Focus and you run 100% boon duration, and you use a Warhorn, and you take a bunch of useless banners, and you have like 12k DPS. If you have all of that, you can sort of kind of have 97% quickness uptime. If you make all of those sacrifices, so it's really bad. So that quickness build is going to go there and uninstall tier. All right, Berserker. Power Berserker got murdered. I'm not going to talk about the crit chance trait fiasco, but suffice it to say, Power Berserker as a DPS class is a deader than dead meme. However, Condi Berserker is a legitimate build. If someone was like, hey, you must play Warrior as a DPS class, and now this person must be a psychopath to tell you this, or to make you do this, because Warrior is dismal right now, and it pains me to say that. But if someone was to make you play a Warrior DPS class, the only viable one, I guess this is a spoiler for Bladesworn, the only viable one is Condi Berserker. However, it's still bad. It's not a good Condi spec. Like, it doesn't in any way compare to these Condi specs in A tier. It's not good. It's not even as good as Condi Daredevil. It's right here down in C tier. So it's going solid C tier. If you have like a bunch of meme friends and they're like, yo dude, I'm gonna play Weaver, and then your other friend is like, cool man, I'm gonna play DPS Reaper, and then you have another friend who's like, I'm gonna play Quickness Herald. You can play Condi DPS Berserker and join in on the fucking memes, because that's what you have. And now we have Bladesworn, which got devastated. It is so much worse than all of the other power DPS specs in the game. It is unplayable as a DPS class unless you hate the people you're playing with and you intentionally want to troll them and make them feel bad. So if that's what you want to do, then go ahead and play Bladesworn. But otherwise, it can go right there and uninstall tier with these other joke specs. So this is, in summary, the tier list of the elite specializations in Guild Wars 2 for raids and strikes after the June 28th patch. If you disagree with me, leave your bad opinions in the comments below. If you agree with me, I will probably give you a thumbs up or a heart on your comments if you leave them below. Otherwise, if you have friends that particularly hate me, be sure to share this with them, because they would almost certainly love to hear from me, because they hate me, and that's always fun. And if you really want to have negative Reddit karma, you'll share this video on Reddit and you'll get downvoted, and all of the comment replies will be I hate Nike and various things like that. So anyway, guys, if that's your jam, do all those things. Otherwise, I will see you in 2 weeks when they try to release an update that fixes things, and maybe I'll log into the game then, because it'll be worth playing. But until then, catch you later.